Aetherdrift spoilers are here, and we are starting off with a bang with a couple of huge special guest reprint announcements, plus a bunch of new stuff that I'll get into here as we go along. But how could I not start us off with Chrome MOX, which is a crazy inclusion as a special guest. If you guys are not familiar with Chrome MOX, it is genuinely one of the most powerful artifact spells, simply being a zero cost that just allows you to get some mana ramping by exiling a... Essentially, it just can be a non-artifact or a non-land. That's a pretty damn easy thing to get going, and it's a zero-cost artifact. So it's crazy across the board. It's always been pretty expensive, despite getting a couple reprints. I think most recently it got a reprint in the Secret Lair 30th anniversary. It might have been in one of the MOX boxes as well. But this is the first time it's getting like a real reprint in quite a bit, and it is insane. Now, there is this, probably hard to see just due to the size they have it on there, but this is the... box topper. It's called the first place box topper, I think it is, and I'm not sure exactly where you get these, but I believe you can get them both in the special bundle that's coming out as well as in, you know, actual boxes. So it's got like this gold finish to it, which is kind of cool, but just in general, getting this in here as a reprint is huge. It's a really strong card that will hopefully at least be a little bit affordable, but with the special guest and the scarcity of them, I'm not sure how much of a dent it'll really make. That said, if you're somebody who, goes in on product, cracks product, whatever, you might have a chance at least pulling it. And it's certainly not going to be a bad card to get in that case. We've also got Lord of the Undead here as a special guest that was revealed. Very cool artwork here. It's different, but it's cool. And this card generally has not been super affordable either. Not too many reprints. It's never been like crazy expensive, but it's still, well, not never, but it's never been crazy expensive, at least recently. It's been, around under $20 for quite a while. But this is a really cool variant of a powerful card, and there are a lot of zombies in this set as well. So this is just, an interesting synergy, but another good choice for a special guest. I don't think they'll be able to make all 10 special guests as good as these two, but it'd be pretty cool if they did. Now, we're going to get into the actual new cards here, some of them anyway. They revealed a bunch, and I want to talk about them, but I want to be able to give them, the appropriate amounts of time. So we'll get through as many as we can, and there'll be a second video tomorrow, so you guys come back and check that out as well. If you haven't done so, though, be sure to hit the like button on this video, click the subscribe button if you want to subscribe to the channel, and then click that bell icon if you want to be notified when new videos are posted. Now, Loot is, you either love him or you hate him. I think he's adorable. We've gotten a couple of Loots so far. I think two. There was one in Big Score and then one in Foundations. This one seems like it's got a lot going for it. So it is a 2 green, blue, red legendary creature, Beast Noble, with double strike, vigilance, and haste. So there's a lot of keywords there. And then it's got a couple different instances of exhaust, which you can use only once for each ability. And I don't know too much about exhaust in terms of, I think it's an existing keyword. I'm almost 100% certain that it is, but I could be wrong. Either way, it looks like it's like a hard once per, copy while it's face up. Just, food for thought if you're curious about the actual layout there. But, so for a green, you can tap and add 3 mana of any one color. For a blue, you can tap and draw 3 cards. And for a red, you can tap and deal 3 damage to any target. Pretty cool. A lot of powerful effects there. I don't, I could see it being a fun commander, but I don't know that it's a necessary option as commander, because, it doesn't do a ton for you in terms of building around it, but it's still a pretty cool card, and I definitely could see people that just like it going in as this, as a choice. The one thing I will say is if you do have a way to blink it off the board, you might be able to make use of, its exhaust abilities a bit more consistently, and I'm sure there's going to be ways people get things together and kind of figure that out. The Last Ride, which... just a crazy cool, name and artwork for this card. It is a 1 black mana. The Last Ride gets -X, where X is your life total. It has 2 and a black, pay 2 life, draw a card, and crew 2. Now, this is an extremely powerful card for a couple reasons. One, when it comes out, as long as it's not crewed, it is not going to automatically die because of the -X. As long as it's just an artifact, it can still sit there and be a solid resource engine for you to draw some cards. But as you get further into a game and your life totals get lower, you can kind of turn this into a creature, and then you have a big, powerful 13/13. It reminds me of, I think is it Spectre of Mortality, maybe, that has a somewhat similar effect in terms of the -X. Going for it. Really cool artwork here for the special variants as well. I'm not really surprised. They've kind of been crushing it lately with the special arts. So this is kind of no exception, unless it's just not your artistic preference. But I do think this is a really, really cool card. Obviously, it's, you know, extremely good later in the game if your life total is low, but I'm also thinking about standard as an application for this too, because of the fact that your life total is lower than in Commander, so it's a lot easier to lose 7 life in standard than it is to get, you know, 27 life in Commander, at least early in the game. So I do think this card has a lot to offer, a lot going for it. It's cool in terms of its design, but it also feels somewhat practical. So we're gonna have to see though, because I haven't had a chance to like sit down and really kind of delve into some of these with the cards that come with them, in terms of, you know, combos and stuff. It's always interesting to look at people's comments, like, what are we looking at here? But it is good, you know, to be played turn 1, and then you can kind of get effects going for it. It's definitely a card I think is worth at least some consideration. I don't know. You guys tell me, because I know that sometimes my initial reaction to stuff is like, oh, this seems good, and it's actually terrible, or vice versa, so you let me know. One I'm pretty sure about, though, that is not terrible is Cryptcaller Chariot. This is 3 and a black artifact vehicle with Menace. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, create that many tapped 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Now, there are a lot of cards in this set that seem to want to create zombie creature tokens, but this feels really strong. If you can find ways to have consistent discard outlets, especially if you're playing cards that let you discard and then draw back up or things of that nature, you can generate a lot of advantage very, very quickly and just kind of spam the board with tokens. I really like it on the surface. I think it's a good card. I honestly think it might be good in multiple formats, but it really depends, again, on how much you can make use of the discarding. There are definitely decks that want to play with as few cards in hand as possible, or discard things to fill up the grave, etc. So there are certainly ways to kind of break this, I think, really, really easily. Kaladin Triumph Caster, or is it Kaladin? I don't know why I said that so weird. It is a white-red legendary creature human pilot with mounts and vehicles you control have haste. Whenever a mount you control enters, it becomes saddled until end of turn. Whenever a vehicle you control enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. What's really cool about this, of course, is it essentially turns your mounts and vehicles on the moment they hit the board. You don't have to crew them or anything, which does make some cards a lot more viable, especially early game, if you're able to get them out right away and they can do stuff. And of course, they do have haste, so they can attack. I really like the idea of this as a commander, because I think it'll be a really fun card to build around, especially with some of the vehicles that like feel really strong on paper, but are often harder to kind of maximize due to the fact that they're vehicles. This is going to be a card that you're going to want to get out early and often, and the cool part is that it's very, very low to the ground in terms of its mana cost, so you probably get it out. Although if you're starting to pop off or actually, you know, do a lot with this, your opponents will probably take it off the board, I would imagine. But either way, it's still a really cool card, and definitely along the lines of what vehicles kind of need in terms of some extra support. Chandra, we knew she'd be back, but she's here, and here's what she does. She's 3 and a red legendary planeswalker. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to 1 target vehicle you control. Until end of turn, it becomes an artifact creature and gains haste. You can +2 to sacrifice an artifact or discard a card, then draw a card. So one way to get our crypt carrier thing going. You can pay 0 to create a 3/2 colorless vehicle artifact token with crew 1, or you can -7 to get an emblem that says whenever an artifact you control enters, this emblem deals 3 damage to any target. That last effect is crazy strong, obviously, in so many different decks, and I do feel like, you know, it's not super hard to get her to that point. Obviously, it's not going to be like the easiest thing in the world, but just generally speaking, I think it's a pretty damn solid card, and just a good Chandra across the board. Quag Feast is 1 and a black sorcery. Choose target creature, planeswalker, or vehicle. Mill 2 cards, then destroy the chosen permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. You can kind of see the gold version of it there as well. Again, pretty good removal, especially for standard. Thank gosh it's not an instant, because I really feel like with cards like Go for the Throat sort of moving towards being out of the format, we really didn't need another instant that does kind of the same thing. But it's still, I think, playable enough, and can honestly later in a game be even stronger to get rid of certain things. I like that it can take out planeswalkers and vehicles as well. It'll fit really well within the standard metagame. I do think there might be some better options for the most part in other formats, but it's never bad to just kind of see what's there and consider those choices. Now, Sab-Sinen, Luxa Embodied, is a 3 green-blue legendary creature god with reach, trample, and indestructible. It cannot attack or block unless it has an even number of counters on it. At the beginning of your first main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on this card. Then if it has an odd number of counters on it, draw 2 cards. So, pretty cool. Really, really cool artwork here on the alternate. I know it's a little hard to see. There are 2. I think this is the first place foil, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure. I haven't been able to keep up fully with all the variants in this set. I have to kind of sit down and look at it so that I can be a bit more educated talking about it in future videos. But I like this a lot. I like the colors it's got going for it. It's got reach, trample, and indestructible, which is just strong in its own right. The counters are not optional to put on it, so be aware that like every other turn, it's not going to be able to attack or block. Unless you have ways to manipulate the number of counters you're putting on it, which certainly green does. It's not like that's impossible to do, but it's a really strong card. I think it's going to end up being really popular amongst people just because of not only what it can do, but the color combination works really well to sort of maximize its effects. So I like it. I think it's cool. Let me know what you guys think of that one in the comment section down below. Now, for the last one in this first video here, we're going to talk about Bloodghast. This card is really goofy looking, especially its alternate treatment option. It is a 2-black creature vampire spirit that cannot block. It has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life. And it has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you may return this card from the graveyard to the battlefield. That's really strong. I don't know if too many cards that just straight up bring something back on a landfall trigger, but that's insanely cool, especially because later in the game, it has haste, so you can just put extra pressure on the opponent. And in Standard specifically, or Pioneer, or whatever other, constructed format, you can bring back multiple copies of this, and there's nothing saying you can't. Pretty powerful on paper, anyway. Maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much, but I mean, if you have ways to get this engraved and then just landfall it, obviously, yeah, it can't block, but does that really matter when you're talking about a 20-life format where you can just kind of get in, especially when haste is applicable? You need to be able to protect yourself, of course, but I think this is a really, really good card. And I'd say probably one to keep an eye on because it just, that self-reviving, and it doesn't come back tapped or anything, which obviously doesn't matter from the blocking perspective, but still, just feels like it's got a lot of potential there in terms of being good in, especially in constructed formats. That's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. There are plenty more cards to cover, and I will continue to do so, so be sure to check back to the channel for more videos, but I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.